Hello. You may have heard the old saying, you can't teach a dog new tricks. And essentially, what that is saying is that it's very challenging to teach anyone who has been doing the same thing over for a long period of time. And when you try to get them to change, it appears that the challenge becomes tougher as people get older. However, people when they are young learn different than when they become adults. So, some of the challenges I will discuss and how you can overcome them coming up on Victory Leadership. Hello again. Uh, when people learn, they learn at different rates based on, and a prime indication is their age. So, younger people, they do not bring as much experience with them as where adults bring significantly more. Now, the terminology that is used for the instructing of children is a term known as pedagogy, and that comes from the Greek, and essentially it's the meaning of describing the methodology of teaching children. Now, this style of education was adopted in Western culture in the early 20th century, and there's some speculation on the exact date, but we're going to kind of go a roundabout of the early 20th century where that started to appear with a more popular method of teaching. Now, this didn't really change for teaching in general until after the 40s. And during this time, a lot of scientific discovery and approaches to how people learn has changed the perceptions of the differences between teaching those who are younger with those who are in adulthood. Now, as I mentioned, pedagogy is teaching younger people or children, and andragogy is just the opposite, is of teaching adults. And going forward, I'll refer to the pedagogy perspective as youth or teaching of children, as the andragogy as adult learning. Now, learning at a youth level, children, this is typically the type of teaching method that is used where instruction or lecture is coming majority of it from the front of the classroom. So the instructor is actually providing the type of information that is going forward, and the students are learning this. Now, the experience of the student is limited at an early age. The exposure to different elements have not really contributed to a bulk of learning. Not to say that a lot of children are not spectacular, but in general, the experience is just because of their age is less than that of an adult. Now, when teaching children, the teaching methods are fairly uniform in the sense that around a particular grade level is when you would expect to see students learn about the alphabet or mathematics or history and things of such. So that uniformity then is part of that a child or children learning during their earlier years. Now, at this time, just a general amount of information is taught, so the student may not have a clear understanding of how this information is going to benefit them as they get older. And due to this, the retention may be challenged or some things may be lost. Now, as the child moves into adulthood, the method of teaching should change or alter to maximize the benefit of the information being conveyed. So adults bring life application into the classroom, and people want to build upon those applications and show that there is value in the information in which they have collected or they have learned. Now, there are ways of reaching their fulfillment or being all that they can be, similar to the self-actualization layers of Maslow's pyramid. People want to progress and maximize their potential, and the information that they have learned, they wish to use this in part as a barometer to measure how much of the contributions and that they can contribute to the environment around them. Now, as adults tend to learn subject matter, many times it's on a voluntary basis, or it may be a part of a requirement. But when it's voluntary, there is a desire to learn out of just having a better understanding of the subject matter chosen. But when it's required, it's typically in the workplace where we see this requirement, and people learn because there's a new process that is discovered that is going to be implemented, a new program is going to get rolled out, and the way you log on and log in information is a little different. So those elements are not as voluntary, but people are willing to learn them because it's a necessary requirement of their being proficient in the workplace. Now, when you bring similarly minded adults together in that type of an environment, there's an opportunity for people to learn from one another, for the different students to interact and provide experiences that bring a life application to the subject matter being taught. And you'll even see this in the layout of the classrooms. So in earlier years, you typically will see a classroom that is made up of rows, and all of the students are facing forward, and most of the instruction comes from the front, so everybody is facing forward. There are times when there are some interactions, but many times those interactions are from the student to the teacher, and then the teacher may repeat or bring up example from a one-on-one conversation that is similar to like a Q&A session. When students try to interact in that environment, it's challenging. People have to turn around, twist in their chairs, and that level of discomfort kind of helps to challenge or prevent that type of interaction. And at an adult level, or when you look at colleges and universities, you start to see a different style of classroom construction, where many of the seats are stadium style seating, and they may be curved in an arc, and some may be as round as a donut, but they are constructed in a way that helps to encourage the interaction from various classmates with one another around the subject matter that is being taught. And at that point, the instructor is a facilitator that helps to encourage the conversation and guide it in the direction that centers around the material that is being conveyed, and pretty much the reason why they're there. And when subject matter is introduced that the classroom or the students have less knowledge of, it starts to change back to a little bit of a pedagogy or a child learning type of an environment, where the instruction then is primarily coming from the teacher. And this is when it's expected that the information is that is just not well known among the students, and then the students can then move back towards an adult learning perspective where they share potential possibilities of how that information can actually be useful and provide that application that they can then wrap their minds around and have examples to help embed that knowledge deeper and for longer. Now, some of the definite benefits, of course, of knowledge is that knowledge is power, and wisdom is that much more powerful yet. When information can remove ambiguities, then it helps to foster a fortress of safety where people are more likely to express their creativity and logical thought. And that can help knowledge retention, proper application, and also the goals of the learning process to begin with. Why are they there, and why are they learning this material at this point in time? Now, when there is a link to that information and where they're going to use it or where they're going to apply it, then there is a little bit more solid retention of that information. If it's just information that's conveyed without application, then the likelihood of retention diminishes and the return on investment for that instruction starts to fade. So, with the right mix of the youthful learning practices and the adult learning practices, striking that balance of the instructor providing that information and then the student providing their own life applications to solidify it, then is optimal for creating a higher return on investment for the learning dollar. Now, the opportunities for leveraging adult learning so the retention can really stick and people can go forth into their environment with more encouragement, with a higher likelihood of success, is through several different types of techniques that will look to aid in elements such as change management. When change happens, people are naturally concerned about how that change will affect them and how they can interact and benefit or to contribute to the success of that change. Now, when people are provided the tools necessary to be successful at what they're being asked to do, then the likelihood of them taking ownership and contributing themselves to the process to create a level of successful implementation, now that change management example has a lot more foundation for success and can set up a reciprocation process of appreciation between the leadership and the students. They want to contribute and, in a sense, show off what they've learned. And in a change management environment, that's critical for success. And other places that information can be used and conveyed does not mean that it's restricted to the organization internally, but external opportunities for education can really have a positive impact on the organization. Elements such as sales and marketing, little quick knowledge nuggets about why the product or service is beneficial to people, why they would want to buy it, why they would want to sign up for it, why would they want to subscribe. When there are these small elements that increase the learner's knowledge. You may be teaching people without them knowing that they're being taught. And because, as I mentioned, how knowledge can help create a more creative mood and logical patterns of thinking, that reduces the fear factor of the unknown, and people will gravitate towards elements that can help move them into that positive frame of thinking. Public relations is another area outside the organization, as well as it's how the internal organization is perceived by the external. And again, education of how the environment benefits from the presence of the organization can not only create a positive perspective of the existence of that company in the environment, but how people can contribute towards ways they can help preserve or continue to contribute to the existence of that environment. People may say things like shop locally because of the contributions that those sales can help to contribute to the pride that we have in our neighborhoods or in our cities. Organizations that operate not only locally but globally can benefit in a similar way when they educate people quickly and effectively at the benefit of their existence and their contributions to the marketplace. And thinking, or I should say, speaking of globally, multicultural and global opportunities abound as our world becomes more interconnected, and the levels of communication are now extend beyond what we even could have potentially conceived not even 50 years ago, let alone even further back. We can then knock down those barriers of ambiguity and look for those things that we share, that we have in common universally, so that we can celebrate those things that make us different. And when we can have opportunities that educate and again diminish those unknowns, then the perceptions and the positive nature have opportunities to flourish. And as an organization that contributes towards promoting those ideas, again, is looked at favorably in the public eye and can help contribute to the betterment of society in general. So, as you position your organization potentially as a thought leader in the industry, because those companies leverage the adult learning techniques while reinforcing or supplementing with those learning techniques provided in our youth, that balance can help acquire the best talent. It can help increase market share of that organization. It can develop a good standing in the community and the industry, and it can set up sustainable action to secure future revenue and growth. So, as adult learning, there is potential, and yes, to fall back on the saying, you can teach an old dog new tricks. And when somebody says, are you smarter than a fifth grader? You can confidently say, yes, I am. So I hope that you found some beneficial nuggets in here that you can use to emphasize that learning and training and development within an organization is important. When there's times that industries and organizations have to operate lean because of changes in our world, adult learning and training and development is one of those things I think twice, thrice, and 4 times more on cutting back or removing. They are critical for organizations to move forward and to recover when those lean periods are past. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more content as it becomes available. And have a victorious week, and we'll see you next time.